its limits. Our legal freedom is tethered by certain reasonable restraints. Time, place, and manner restrictions are constitutional, but they must be content neutral and narrowly tailored to serve an appropriate and specific government interest. University administrators would like to believe that instead of reasonable time, manner, and place concerns is the criteria of the constitutionally restrictive menage a trois in speech. It is tolerance, respect, and diversity. But the Constitution makes no allowance for content-based restrictions. The best way to see free speech is through the lens of the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Applied to free speech, this means that whatever rights to expression you want for yourself, you must tolerate in others. If Mary says something that offends John, the remedy is not to censor Mary, but to accord John an equal right to reply. FIRE unites civil rights and civil liberties leaders, scholars, journalists, and public intellectuals across the political and ideological spectrum to protect this very idea. We work on behalf of liberty, legal equality, due process, religious liberty, voluntary association, and sanctity of conscience, the essential qualities of individual liberty and human dignity on America's college campuses. Our primary concern is to protect the unprotected and work to sustain and defend the individual rights guaranteed by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. FIRE's freedom philosophy is explicated in FIRE's Guides to Student Rights on campus, available for free download on FIRE's website, and available for free in hard copy form to students upon request. Our methods are to utilize the court of public opinion rather than the court of law. We first write a letter to the university and explain their moral and often legal obligations to uphold the right to free expression. Sometimes that is enough, and the university rights whatever wrong has been perpetrated. However, if they do not see the light of liberty, then we let them feel the heat and launch a publicity campaign. Administrators are loath to defend in public what they do in private. Our success rate is incredibly high. At Marquette University, as at most universities, it was common practice for graduate students and professors to hang political paraphernalia on their office doors. Stuart Ditzler, a graduate student in philosophy, hung the following quotation from comedian Dave Barry on his office door. Quote, "As Americans, we must always remember that we all have a common enemy, an enemy that is dangerous, powerful, and relentless. I refer, of course, to the federal government." End quote. Shortly thereafter, Philosophy Department Chair James South sent Ditzler an email explaining that he had received complaints about the quotation and removed it from the office door because, quote, "While I am a strong supporter of academic freedom, I'm afraid that hallways and office doors are not free speech zones. If material is patently offensive and has no obvious academic import or university sanction, I have little choice but to take note." End quote. By what standards was Dave Barry's quote patently offensive? This censorship of political expression is a great example of viewpoint discrimination that undermines the commitment to academic freedom that is supposedly so central to the goals of universities in general and Marquette University in particular. While Marquette is a private Catholic institution and therefore is not bound directly by the Bill of Rights, its policies reflect a strong commitment to the academic freedom and free speech. Marquette's faculty handbook contains safeguards for academic freedom, adapted from the American Association of Universities' 1941 Statement of Principles of Academic Freedom, guaranteeing that academic freedom is prized as essential to Marquette University and to its living growth as a university. Professional academic freedom is that proper to the scholar-teacher whose profession is to increase knowledge in himself or herself and in others. Furthermore, Marquette's student handbook recognizes the rights of its students to express their political or ideological opinions. The handbook states, "It is clearly inevitable and indeed essential that the spirit of inquiry and challenge that the university seeks to encourage will produce many conflicts of ideas, opinions, and proposals for action. Marquette thus recognizes the right of the members of the university community freely to communicate by lawful demonstration and protest the positions that they conscientiously espouse on vital issues of the day." The posting of a single quotation on an office door surely qualified as such protected expression. At the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, the college libertarians joined a number of other students and student organizations in peaceful protest of the university's unconstitutional restrictions on speech and assembly. Greensboro had a policy that restricted any exercise of free speech and assembly to 2 free speech zones. The college libertarian protest occurred outside the confines of these free speech zones. The college libertarians' protest occurred in an effort to bring attention to the unconstitutionality of the policy defining those areas. Greensboro police demanded that they cease demonstrating outside the free speech areas. When they refused, the president of the group, Allison James, was called to face a disciplinary hearing for violation of the free speech zone policy and the Student Code of Conduct's value of respect. Greensboro's unconstitutional restrictions on free speech turned Miss James into a campus criminal because she refused to respect an unconstitutional policy and instead exercised one of the fundamental rights of every student at our nation's public institutions of higher learning. Fire intervened with letters and a publicity campaign, and Allison James was acquitted of all charges, and Greensboro ultimately abolished its free speech zone policy. Free speech concerns are by no means a partisan issue. We've come to the aid of conservative Christians banned from holding Bible studies, such as Lance Stagger at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and to the defense of a gay and lesbian group like that at Hampton University, where the proposed gay group was twice denied recognition for no stated reason. Some cases have no connection to partisan politics. It's just a matter of a student who happened to cross the standards of respect or community that the administration decided to uphold. If you don't think this can happen to you, think again. At Johns Hopkins University, a student named Justin Park, the social chair of the Sigma Chi fraternity chapter, posted an advertisement for his fraternity's Halloween in the Hood party on Facebook. Director of Greek Affairs Robert Turning asked Park to remove the invitation because some students found it offensive. Park removed the advertisement on October 27th. After receiving inquiries into whether the party would still take place, Park posted a different advertisement, and Sigma Chi hosted the party on October 28th. On November 6th, Associate Dean of Students Dorothy Shepard sent Park a letter stating that the 2 Facebook advertisements contained offensive racial stereotyping and that there were offensive decorations at the party. Shepard's letter informed Park that he was charged with failing to respect the rights of others and to refrain from behavior that impairs the university's purpose or its reputation in the community. Violating the university's anti-harassment policy, failure to comply with the directions of a university administrator, conduct or a pattern of conduct that harasses a person or a group, and intimidation. On November 9th, the Student Conduct Board held a hearing to discuss the charges against Park. And on November 20th, Park received another letter from Shepard stating that he had been found responsible for all charges. Park faced suspension from the university until January 2008, during which time he would not be allowed to even set foot on campus. Completion of 300 hours of community service, an assignment to read 12 books and write a reflection paper on each, and mandatory attention at a workshop on diversity and race relations, all for 2 posters he put on Facebook. Fire intervened with a pair of letters and press releases, and Johns Hopkins backed down on most of its claims and punishments, to the ultimate satisfaction of Justin Park. I wish I could say that these cases were the exception, but Fire has seen literally hundreds of them, as only a cursory examination of our website, thefire.org, will indicate. Marywood, as a private institution, is not bound by the legal arguments for free speech, but it is bound by its own policies regarding free speech. If Marywood believes in free expression, as it says it does, then it should find a guide to the philosophical in the philosophical and moral arguments on which those legal arguments are based. Those arguments are, after all, the foundation of a free society and the sacred principles of a free people. Many free speech critics at private universities, immune as they are from the legal necessity of free speech protection, argue that respect for the value of each human being, as one of the core values of Marywood University is described, is an overriding goal that trumps most free speech concerns. This argument isn't new. prior to the Civil War, Southern politicians tried to ban anti-slavery speech on the grounds that it inflamed